Hello, this is Brian Foster, and we're talking about Spiritism today, October 31st, 2021. United States, it's Happy Halloween. So I hope everyone's having a great holiday for those who celebrate it. I see nothing wrong with it. It's fun. Others might, but I think it's just all innocent fun. And if kids like dressing up, so be it. I did. I had lots of candy. I have fond memories of my dad taking me around and I'd be afraid to go to a house. He goes, "No, no, go to the house," and he'd be right there by me. So those were good memories. Okay, today we're going to talk about the Spiritist Review. Lemaire, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that in French wrong. The Murderer, the Queen of Oude, and Dr. Xavier. And again, the Spiritist Review is a very interesting. It's the monthly magazine, and the Spiritist Review is the book. It has all 12 monthly magazines for the year 1858, and I hope that it. And I'm not reading all parts of it. I'm trying to get what kind of the little gems that I believe are interesting to people of what Allan Kardec wrote about, what information he got from other mediums group that when they did evocations and so on and so forth. A lot of interesting little bits of data here. So, but before I begin, visit my site nwspiritism.com, and I would suggest if you want to know more about Spiritism, I would get the book, and you can buy it on PDF, of course. I mean, actually, you can download for free on PDF. The Spirits book by Allan Kardec. You just put in Allan Kardec space PDF. You'll find all of his books on PDF. You can also, on my site for free, download the PDF of Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. And of course, you can get it on paperback, Kindle, and an Audible format. But here are two books you can get on PDF. They can get you started. I would, for some, I would, if you want to get the overview first, I would read my PDF version. It's only 100 pages, a little bit less, I think. I can't remember exactly how many pages. But then I would get into the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. Now, if you like listening to books, again, on my YouTube video site, I have every chapter of the Spirits book, and look for the Spirits book playlist. And then also on my site, nwspiritism.com, I have a downloadable MP3 format and the I think it's M4 something. It's the Audible format where you can save chapters and skip and do all that type of stuff, and and then listen to it in your Apple player or whatever type of audible book player that you have. So those are two options for those who want to know more about Spiritism, because it explains a lot. Okay, let us get into what I was going to go. That is Lemaire. I'm sure again I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. The Murder, and this is an evocation. Let me put this up on the screen. There we go. Let me hide my nwspiritism.com. Okay. This is a murderer who was sentenced to the maximum penalty by the court of Aisne and executed. He was executed December 31st, 1857. And they evoked him on January 29th, 1858. So like just a tad under 1 month later. So let's see what he says. Here's a question from the Spiritist group. I ask Almighty God to allow Lemaire, the murderer, executed on December 31st, 1857, to come to us. The answer is, I am here. How could you so promptly attend our appeal? And the answer is, Raquel said so. It must have been one of his spirit mentors. What do you... Oh, here's what it says, Miss Raquel. Evoked a few days later through the same medium, manifested instantly. The following questions were addressed to her with respect to this subject. How could you come so promptly at the very instant of your evocation? One would say that you were ready. When Hermance calls us, we come immediately. You thus have a lot of sympathy for Mrs. Hermance. And the answer for Raquel is, there's a link between us. She would come to us, we come to her. Is there a similarity of characters between you? How come there is sympathy? And the answer is she's never entirely left the spirit world. So must be Miss Raquel, who was a spirit, knew of. Let me go back here. Knew the murderer. Okay. Question 3. What do you feel in our presence? Shame. How can a young lady, kind like a lamb, serve as an intermediary to you, a slaughterer? And the answer is God allows you. God allows so. Now, why does God want him to talk to mediums? Why doesn't God just say, no, you stay in the lower zone or the dark abyss? He probably lower in the lower forms. It's kind of a purgatory, not a nice place. Why would he be allowed to talk to a group of mediums? Well, the spirit world always wants someone to change, repent, look to the light, become a better person. And when he is given the chance to talk to mediums, and then he even said he felt shame, right? Let him address his own guilt in his own actions, and that might help him turn a corner on his personality and character. Now, he'll still have to pay the price, for his wrong in his last life. For his next life, he'll probably be murdered by someone, but hopefully it'll be a nice guy who was murdered, unfortunately, instead of someone who was in some sort of criminal activity and then passed away. Question 5. Were you lucid up to the last moment? Yes. That's pretty frightening. Number 6, immediately after your execution, were you aware of your new existence? Okay, so this is a great one to think about. So, people are always thinking, what happens when I die? So now he knew, unlike most of us where we like die in our sleep or we die like in an accident, or a quick heart attack, something like that. There is a certain portion of us that kind of know that, okay, it's coming. So he knew it was going to come. So this is what he said. I was immersed in great perturbation, which I have not left yet. I felt a great pain. It seems that my heart felt it. I saw something rolling at the bottom of the gallows. I saw the blood running, and my pain was pungent. So he actually, I saw something rolling. So when he saw something rolling at the bottom of the gallows, so he wasn't seeing out of his eyes. Probably as soon as that hit, his perispirit like rose up out of his body and saw the scene. But he could still feel the pain because he probably maybe still connected because the body was still somewhat alive. Number 7, was it a physical pain similarly to that caused by serious energy, like, for example, the amputation of a limb? He goes, no, imagine remorse, a great moral pain. And again, this is what we are told all the time by spirits, is the pain that someone has. And there's other pain. There's thinking that they have pain from an ulcer they used to have or things like that. So that happens too. But the greatest pain is your own criminality, your own mistakes, your own errors. And that's why people come back and incarnate again on earth, is to pay for those past wrongs, because they have such moral pain and just they feel terrible about it. They want to pay the price themselves. And as we're told over and over again by spirits, the harshest judge that we have when we go to the spirit world is ourselves. We are the ones that say, why did you do that? And usually other spirits say, well, you're learning, you're mature, you'll make it up, look forward. But we're the ones that will say, why did I do that? Now, don't kill yourself over looking back and feeling regret. It's good to feel regret to a certain point, but only regret if you're going to do something about it, if you're going to change. And then once you say, okay, I'm going to change, I'm not going to be that way. And even if I do slide back again, I'm still going to try and do better. Then forget that regret. It's just like Spirit John of the Angels says, take that arrow out of the quiver, launch it into the forest, and never look at it again, because you're just wasting your time feeling guilty about something when you've already changed your character. Besides, that's what we're on earth for. Just like a child is, you watch them make mistakes and you expect them to make mistakes because that will be good for them in the long run. We as spirits are expected to make mistakes and expected to feel bad about our mistakes, but then this will all be good for us in the long run. So this is not making mistakes and being not a nice person isn't the end of the world. What it is a delay in becoming a perfect spirit, no doubt. But it is a step when you can understand that, no, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Okay, question 8. When have you started to feel that pain? Since I became free, meaning out of his body. The physical pain caused by the execution was felt by the body or by the spirit? And he answered, the moral pain was in my spirit. The body felt the physical pain, but separated, the spirit still resented. Did you see the mutilated body? I saw something formless, which I had apparently left. However, I felt whole. I was myself. Look, and that was his paraspirit. Your paraspirit's always in good shape, right? Unless you think it's not, although it still is, but then you in your mind, right? Thought is action in the spirit world. Which impression has caused a sight? What impression has such a sight caused on you? I felt too much pain. I was dominated by it. 12. Is it true that the few moments after decapitation, the body still lives and the executed is conscious of their ideas? And the answer is the spirit leaves gradually. The tighter the ties was matter, the longer the separation. And this is true in everything. And in fact, the tighter the ties with matter, sometimes you never leave the surface of the earth. You're tied to the earth. You're tied to your favorite house. You're tied to the family you don't want to leave. You're tied to the car that you love. This is why, you can go through life, buying things, owning things, but don't fall in love with them. Don't know that they're more important than your spirituality. And of course, and this is, so he's talking the truth here. So it's harder to separate yourself from material goods. And for him, he's probably very materialistic and wanted to live on the earth. And 13, how long does it take? Well, it's meant to leave your body, to separate. And the answer is it varies, right? It varies person by person. 14, they say that an expression of rage beyond the movements have been noticed in the face of certain executed people, as if they wanted to speak. Is it the effect of a nervous contraction, or is there participation of the will? And he answered the will, because the spirit had not left yet. So maybe those people just wanted to say, didn't want to die, and their paraspirit stayed a little bit longer. 15, what was the first feeling you experienced on entering the new existence? The answer is an intolerable suffering, a kind of pungent remorse whose cause I ignored. So already he felt guilty of what he did. 16, are you with your accomplices with whom you were simultaneously executed? And he answered, most unfortunately. Seeing each other is a continuous suffering. Each condemns the other's crimes. Boy, if that's not the not me, it's not my fault mindset of criminals, right? It's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault, and they're each condemning each other. And I've read numerous passages of people in purgatory and the lower zone, the dark abyss, where these people who were criminals in life, all they do is sit around blaming each other for everything they did wrong, and they never blame themselves. When they start blaming themselves and look within themselves, that's when they're going to start rising from those lower zones. 17, did you meet your victims? I see them. They are happy. Their eyes pursue me, and I feel them in the depth of my being. I hopelessly try to escape. What is your feeling in their presence? Shame and remorse. I elevated them with my own hands and still hate them. Now, again, this is what spirits will tell us, that if someone's been murdered, if you're a victim, they will try and help you all you can, right? Um, Even if you're maybe not a perfect person, there's still the fact, if you're a victim, they'll they'll try and get you to the level you belong, um, within, within the limits of the law of affinity. And so the victims of people that he killed were probably people who incarnated and they were due to be killed, and that meant that they now paid their debt, and hopefully it paid their debt sufficiently so they would be met as soon as they were killed and brought up into the spirit world, into one of the levels of heaven. And of course, he still hates them. He hates his victims. Why does he hate his victims? Because they are happy. Because he elevated them with his own hands. They should say, "Oh, thank you for elevating me." In his mind, this is what a lot of criminals and very immature spirits will do. It's never their fault, and you should do everything for them that they want you to. And if you're successful and they're not, well, that's your fault. Now, you can't hate these people. You just almost have to laugh at them because they're immature. They're like little kids in some sort. They just haven't been through enough lives to understand their own personal responsibility. So the best thing to do is, when they say things like you, which are completely irrational, or he would say, I hate my victims. You just, have to shake your head and say, well, God bless you, and laugh a little bit, because we've all been there, right? We've all been in some previous life. I tell you, most of most of us have been horrible, horrible people. I've been told I've been horrible. Now, I'm sure there's exceptions that someone that's been really great people in all of their previous lives, and God bless them. But most of us at one time or other have not been exactly stellar, if I can put it that way. So, why do I say that? Because when you see other people who are like, you think like, oh, that's a horrible person. You have to think that, well, I was there too, but they're probably behind me in their trajectory of their improving their spirituality and becoming a pure spirit. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be locked up, or you can't defend yourself against them. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you just don't hate them. Don't waste in a primitive emotion. Just, just feel sorry for them and pray for them that they will elevate and learn in their own time. Number 19, what is the feeling they have when they see you? Pity. Now, Chris, this is what makes them mad. Do they show hate or desire of vengeance? No. Their prayers attract expiation to me. You cannot imagine the suffering one has by owing everything to those that one hates. Yeah, so, I mean, this poor guy's got a road that even they're trying to pray for him. It makes them hate them more. And how many of us have seen that? What's the old saying? No good deed goes unpunished. How many people watching this have done something good for someone, and then they end up hating you, and you go, well, why do they hate me? I did something good for them. Well, because you were in a position to do something good for them and they weren't. So there's envy, jealousy, pride, all the things that hold us back. So that's why we don't want we want to get rid of those primitive emotions. 21. Do you regret your earthly life? I only regret my crimes. If the facts still depended on me, I would not have succumbed. So the fact still depended on me, I would not have succumbed. So he's blaming his life circumstances, the fact he turned to crime. So then they ask, how were you led to such a criminal life? Listen, I thought I was strong. I chose a tough trial and gave in to evil temptations. Okay, now he's taking some responsibility. What was the tendency towards crime in your nature, or were you dragged by the environment in which you lived? Here's the great truth. The tendency towards crime was in my nature, as I was an inferior spirit. I wanted to rise rapidly, but I requested more than proportion to my strength. So we're all born, when we're born in children, we're almost a blank slate. But by the time we are in our early teens to 20s, our true personality comes out and our tendencies come out. And if he was a inferior spirit and he had a tendency to get what he wanted no matter what other people thought, then that's, and if he wasn't strong enough with the help of the upbringing by parents who were involved, then he would do things like this. This is what happens a lot. In fact, many good parents will volunteer for a inferior or primitive spirit to be part of their family. That's why you'll see like a black sheep of a family, because they'll volunteer to have that person part of their family, so they have a chance to rise quickly and be under the influence of superior people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The parents are never at fault. They're never blamed by the spirit world like, oh, that was, why couldn't you make that person good? Well, no, they're not going to do that. The fact that they volunteered and tried their best was all that is important. So if you have a child like you can't understand, like, where did that child come from? It's not like me. It's not like my wife. It's not like my grandparents or uncles or aunts on any side. Oh, maybe one uncle, right? How did they get that way? Well, I would say that you'd say, look, love that child. Of course, don't put up with it if they're addicted or anything like that. Don't put up with any of the foolishness. You don't have to. If once they're over 18, love that child, but know that you did your best. But that child had a nature that they're still driven by primitive emotions, right? Hate, envy, selfishness, pride. And you did your best to kind of modify those and in part advance feelings, right? Love, charity, fraternity, honesty. But it didn't work. But it's not a complete failure, because when they go back into the spirit world, they'll think back on their childhood, on what you taught them, and it will have an impact. It may not have an impact as you see in this one life for that person. It may later on in life too. You never know. But do not think that you were a complete failure, because it will have an impact at some point in time. It will be a memory. It could be deeply recessed, but it will be a memory that will come up as they're analyzing how they got to where they were. Okay, 24. Here's a good point. I just said, had you been given a good educational principles, could you have deviated from the life of crime? Yes, but I chose the position in which I was born. So he doesn't know yet. He's just saying yes because he wants to defend himself. He was a primitive spirit, an ignorant spirit, inferior spirit, who thought he could pay a lot and then rise rapidly. Now, he probably went to a pretty low-life family, a criminal family, in which would have helped him, even give him more credit. But he said, I chose the position in which I was born. So he still made his decisions. Could he have? Oh, here's the next question. Could you have acted as a good man? And he says, as a weak man, as incapable of good as of evil, I could have slowed down during my existence the progress of evil, which was in my nature, but I could not have elevated to a point as to practice good. So that's good. So he's starting to analyze himself. When alive, did you believe in God? No. It is said that you repented at the moment of your death. Is it true? He said, I believed in a vindictive God and feared his justice. Well, God's justice is for you to become a better person. And his justice is, God always forgives, but you've got to forgive yourself, then ask God for forgiveness to make yourself feel better. Is your regret more sincere now? I see what I have done. What do you think about God now? I feel him, but do not understand him. Well, that's true for all of us. Do you find it fair, the punishment inflicted on you on earth? And the answer is yes. Do you hope for forgiveness of your crimes? I don't know. Well, actually, the victim's already forgiven them. But he can't say that, because then he has to accept the pity. 32. How do you intend to redeem your crimes? By new trials, but it seems that eternity is between us. Yes. How could you atone for your faults in a new existence if you do not keep memory of those? I'll have their intuition, and that's and instinct. So really, what you have is your conscience and your instinct. Are those trials experienced on Earth or another world? I don't know. Right? He's just died recently. He doesn't know what his future plans are. Where are you now? In my suffering, he says. I asked about the place where you are now. It goes near Ermance, which is the medium. Are you incarnate or errant? Meaning he's free in the spirit world. Errant means there's no physical body. If I were incarnate, I would have hope. As I said, it seems that eternity is between me and the expiation. And that is, and so that is one of the punishments that people have. And I don't even like to use the word punishments, but it's people like this are not told that, yeah, if you change your character and your personality and you look toward the light, you'll get out of the situation you're in. But they have to figure that out themselves. So they think that they're in this lower zone, this purgatory for eternity. But they're not. It's up to them to get out of it. Question 38. Considering that you are here, if we were able to see you, how would you present yourself? He goes, under my corporeal form, with the head separated from the body. Can you show up to us? No, leave me. Can you tell us how you escaped from Montdidier prison? I no longer know. I suffered so much that only the memory of the crime remains. Leave me. Can we provide any relief to your suffering? Vow that I reach expiation. So aren't these are just so interesting. And this is what makes Spiritism it makes it alive, because when most religions talk about spirits and so forth, they either think of angels or demons. And any humans that leave the life are somewhere in heaven that you'll never talk to them again. And other ones are down in hell being tortured every day. Okay, here's a question. Would you know that the errant place is temporary if you studied Spiritism during that lifetime? Yes, you would. Yes. If he had studied Spiritism, he would absolutely know that he did wrong. He'd feel guilty about it. And he'd also know that if he tried to help others down at that low level and he tried to start being a good person, even though he was surrounded by bad people, he would know that it would be a temporary situation. So the answer is yes. Okay. Now we have another interesting one, which is the Queen of Oude, or Oude. Not quite sure, again, how to pronounce that. And the queen, this principality was one of this was 1858, and before that the English had taken over most of India, and Oude was a principality, a kingdom inside of India, of which the British really took over. But again, remember that in the British Raj, they let many kings and queens and rajas keep their crown and keep their a lot of their power, as long as their exterior power was controlled by the British. So she was supposed to have been a pretty wealthy person from India. And of course, a lot of them came to England and studied there. A lot of their children studied there because that's where the power structure was, right? Because the English had taken over India. And so now they're talking to her. Okay, note. From now on, we shall remove the formula of evocation from this conversation, which is always the same unless it answers presence, any particularity. Okay. Which sensations did you experience on leaving this earthly life? I couldn't tell. I still experience a perturbation. So she's still like a little upset on it. Are you happy? No, she says. Why aren't you happy? I miss life. I don't know. I experienced a pungent pain. Life would have released me from this. I wish my body would rise from the grave. Do you regret not have been buried in your own country, but among Christians? Yes, Indian soil would weigh less over my body. So she's very materialistic, you can tell, right? What do you think about the eulogies given to your mortal remains? They were too stingy. I was the queen, and not everyone bent their knees before me. Leave me, I am forced to speak. I do not want you to know what I became. Behold, I was queen. So, self important. And again, we're told this over and over in Spiritist literature that when very famous people who pass over, a lot of them still expect to be treated as if they were wealthy and famous and special. And in actuality, they're pitied and somewhat scorned because then they're put wherever the law of affinity would put them, meaning it could be in a very low region. And they'll learn to become humble at some time, right? And because remember, as Jesus said, if you want to rise in humble, you have to rise in heaven. You have to approach this as humble as a child, right? And that's why it's so I always look at children because they just, whatever mom and dad says, and I'm just waiting to be led. And you've got to, it's important to get into that thinking. And I know it's hard because we on earth, we think well of ourselves, which is not bad. That we think well of our accomplishments. We think well of our education and our intelligence. But that you have to look at that as if a fifth grader thinks well of himself or herself, their accomplishments and their intelligence. And as a fifth grader, absolutely, you may be worthy of that, right? But it's still a fifth grader, and what you don't know is tremendous. And that's what we have to look at too, because what I don't know, what you don't know, is tremendous. We're on Earth, which is the planet of atonement, pretty far down in the level of planets. We're still in the level of heavens around the Earth. We haven't gone above the level of heaven to the higher levels of heavens that are over solar systems and constellations and galaxies and become productive members of society. We're still student spirits into a sense, not still learning how to use all the uh, all the powers of our brain and the other powers we have as a spirit. So we may think well of ourselves, but we have to put ourselves in context. And that's not easy. 7. Do you give the same? Oh, wait, we respect your hierarchy and ask you to respond to instruct us. Do you think that one day your son will recover the paternal domains? And she said, my blood will certainly reign as it is worthy of that. So, do you give the same importance to the reintegration of your son to the throne of Oude as when you were alive? My blood cannot be confused with the crowd. So this is, a person that is proud of their nobility, and it's special, and everyone else is below them, and that's probably why she's not in a good place right now. 8. What is your opinion about the true cause of the Indian uprising? And that's happened quite a couple of times when they revolted against the British, and some of them were quite near successful. Because the Indian was made to be the master in their own house, which of course happened after World War II. What do you think about the future of that country? She says India will be great among the nations. And I believe India will. 10. It was not possible to test your place of birth in a death certificate. Can you say it now? Because I was born out of the noblest blood in India. I believe I was born in Delhi. Well, here's a question. I thought when we pass, we realized that our roles in Earth are an illusion. Is that not so? Of course. Now, okay. This is a perfect illustration of depends. It all depends. The answer is all depends. If you are interested in spirituality and spiritism, you know that our roles on Earth are an illusion and are part of the plan to help us become a better person. If you never tried to grow your spirituality and you lived a completely materialistic life, when you pass over, just like this queen, your mind isn't elevated magically. You don't grow wings and you don't acquire a great amount of wisdom, you still know what you know. That's why Allan Kardec in the Medium's book says that when you talk to spirits, there's going to be really intelligent spirits, there are going to be medium intelligent spirits, there are going to be dead wrong and stupid spirits. Because you don't change your outer casing, you become less dense, your perispirit's still there, but your physical body isn't. So unless you really have that mind where you open yourself and understand your new world you're in, then you'll know that your roles were an illusion and they were meant to train you, right? No matter if you were a ditch digger or king or dictator of a country. It's all meant to test you and have you experience different situations. But there's none of that, right? I mean, it all depends. And it goes, and then Vikrat says, it's interesting that the spirit from India reacted that way, since most believe in reincarnation. And yes, and again, that's an excellent point. So here you have India, which is a great country, but there are criminals, there's crime, there's people that cheat you, right? And yet, don't they know there's reincarnation? And and I believe most Indians, for Hindu and Buddhists, are exposed to the fact that karma is real, and yet they don't believe it. Just like here in other countries, with Christianity and all the different factions, is that you should be honest, you should be good, follow the golden rule. That's your way into heaven. People rationalize that. No, I can do that. I'll be okay. They won't catch me. I won't let anybody catch me. Of course, we're always being watched and being tracked. So, yes, what I do believe that once the world understands there is indeed a spirit world, there is indeed karma is real and reincarnation is real, that people will go, oh, I better think accordingly. In fact, here's a good point. And as we carry on. Okay. Number 11, you who have always lived in the splendors of luxury and surrounded by honors, what are your thoughts now? The answer is they were owned to me because of her birth, right? 12, does your earthly position confer you a more elevated position in the world where you are today? And that's all again, here it is. I'm always queen. May they send me slaves to serve me. I don't know. It seems that they're not concerned with me here. Nevertheless, I'm always myself. Now, here's the one that you just asked about. Number 13, were you an adept of the Muslim religion or an Indian religion? Muslim, but I was too great to worry about God. There you go. And you could say that to a lot of people. Too rich, too great, too preoccupied, too focused on material goods to worry about the spirit life. Oh, and I love this next question. What difference do you observe between your religion and the Christian religion regarding man's future happiness? Christian religion is absurd, as it considers all men brothers. There you go. And I understand that, especially as we become from a primitive planet onward. We were basically tribal type people, right? Our cousins, our brothers and sisters, those were people we cared about. But as you go higher and higher in the spirit world, you know that everyone on earth, whatever culture, religion, race, anything, job, they're all spirits who are trying to be better. That's the bottom line. Now, does that mean that, there's a lot of rotten people here on earth that do a lot of damage? Yeah, there is a lot of rotten people that do a lot of damage on earth. That's not going to be the way forever. We are now on the road to become a planet of regeneration. Those people who haven't started the trek upwards will be sent to other planets. We're in a planet of regeneration. Those who do not fit in, who persist in crime and cheating people and taking advantage of others, will be sent to other planets when they pass away. The apocalypse won't happen in front of our eyes. The apocalypse is happening and it's accelerating now behind the scenes as people who have not improved themselves in this life. They will not be allowed to reincarnate on Earth. They'll go to other planets at a lower level than Earth. Number 15, what is your opinion about Muhammad? Because he was not the son of a king. Did he have a divine mission? And the answer was, why would I care? So this is, to her, it was all about class. It was all class based. If you're not on the upper noble class, you were nothing. What is your opinion about Christ? The son of a carpenter is not worthy of occupying my thoughts. What do you think about the Muslim custom of subtracting women from men's eyes? I believe women were made to dominate. I was a woman. Have you ever been jealous of the freedom women enjoy in Europe? No. Why should I bother with their freedom? Are their servants on their knees? Of course, she had the ultimate freedom. She was in charge of everybody. 20. What is your opinion about women's conditions in general in the human species? Why bother with women if you talked about queens? So she is just completely blind. Anyone else who's not on her level is just the carpet she walks on. And she talks, are their servants on their knees? And they're on their knees because they should be, because she's the queen and they're not. Do you remember any other existence on Earth prior to the one you just left? No, I must have always been queen. So she has not been allowed to remember previous existence. She's probably not ready for that. That would probably be too shocking. Why did you respond so promptly to our appeal? I did not want to come. I was forced. Do you think I would bother to answer? Who do you think you are before me? So again, she was forced. But that's again to make her be aware of what other humans, right, incarnated humans are thinking. Who forced you to come? I don't know. However, there may not be anybody greater than me here. Greater as in title. So a higher spirit gave her a mental message saying, "Now you're going to this medium's meeting," and she was forced to do that, right? Because a higher spirit can dominate a lower spirit, no problem. Now they won't do that because it violates your free will. But in things like this, when she is an errant spirit, they'll say, "No, you got to go there and talk to these people." Where are you located? Near us. Let me just go. Would it be her guardian angel forcing her to go? Most probably. Your guardian angel doesn't leave you when you're in the spirit world. Your guardian angel, even when you're in the spirit world, is always in contact somehow with you. So there was a great passage in one of the books by Jiva Owen. I talk about it in my Spirits in the Spirit Universe book 2, where this guy's been a spirit pretty high up in levels of heaven, and not tell you it was at the 10th level of heaven. Did he actually ever meet his guardian angel face to face? His guardian angel has been with him, right, with intuition and all that type of stuff, and inspiration, but he never met. So the guardian angel is always with you. Okay, under which form are you here? I'm always queen. Do you think I am no more? You are not much respectful. Know that this one should address queens differently. Why can't we see you? I don't want you to. If we could see you, would that be with your dresses, ornaments, and jewelry? Certainly. How can that be having left all that behind? Your spirit has kept the appearance, especially with your clothes and your jewelry. They have not left me. I'm always as beautiful as I was. I don't know the idea you make of me. It is true that you never saw me. Very interesting. Oh, here's another question. Oops. I ask because I'm trying to establish a conscious relationship with my guardian angel, hoping that I can recognize him when it is my turn to pass. Well, yeah. And you never know. Some people know their guardian angel. I've seen people with NDEs that meet their guardian angel. And so it's certainly possible. And in fact, that you're asking to meet him and you want to recognize him, make that wish known. I think that's a great wish. For me, I don't know if I want that because I would be so embarrassed. I would think like, What did you do wrong to get me as you as the person you have to watch over? You poor guy. I mean, I have to apologize for all the dumb things I've done. So you are a better person than I who want to meet your guardian angel. So I applaud your I applaud your wishes there. Number 29. Which impression you experience among us? Because if I could, I would not be here. You treat me with such little respect. I don't want to be treated like this. Call me Majesty, otherwise I will respond no more. Your Majesty knew the French language? Why not? I knew everything. Would your Majesty prefer to answer in English? No. Won't you leave me alone? I want to leave. Leave me. Do you think I'm submitted to your caprices? I am a queen, not a slave. We kindly ask you to answer 2 or 3 more questions. St. Louis' response, who was present, leave the poor astray lady. Have pity on her blindness. May she serve you as an example. You do not know how much her pride suffers. Oh, and then the person on the comment said, we all do dumb things. Absolutely. That's part of just, being us. I totally agree. So here's a note from Allan Kardec, who wrote, the conversation offers several lessons. Evoking his fallen greatness now in the grave, we do not expect very profound answers given by the type of education women have in that country. We thought we could find in this spirit, if not philosophy, at least a truer sense of reality and a healthier ideas about the vanities and earthly greatness. Far from it. Her earthly ideas preserved all their strength. It is pride, which loses nothing of its illusions, struggling against its own weaknesses, that indeed must suffer a lot from its impotence. Having foreseen responses of an entirely different nature, we had prepared several questions that have lost their meaning. The answers were so different from what we expected, as also the other persons present. We could not find them in the influence of a strange thought. They have, however, such a characteristic hallmark of personality which clearly demonstrate the identity of the manifested spirit. We are impressed, and rightly so, to see Lemaire, the man degraded and sullied by all his crimes, manifest in his language from beyond the grave, feelings which denote a certain elevation and a very accurate assessment of the situation. While the Queen of Oude, whose social position could have developed the moral sense in her, worldly ideas have not suffered any change. It seems easy to explain the reason for this anomaly. For the more degraded he could be, Lemaire lived in the midst of a civilization, an enlightened society, which had reacted over his rude manner. Without realizing it, he had absorbed some rays of light which surrounded him. And of course, the spirits tell us no one's all bad or all good. There's always a balance. There's always some goodness in there. And then someone who's, pretty high spirit, there's always could be some little stuff they have to work on. It absorbed some rays of light which surrounded him, and it was that very light that brought him up thoughts which were muffled by his abjection, but whose germ nevertheless subsisted. The situation is completely different with the Queen of Oude. The environment in which she lived, the habits, the absolute lack of intellectual culture, everything should have contributed to maintain the ideas that she acquired since her childhood in all their vigor. Nothing could change that primitive nature maintained by her empire of prejudice. Well, I do disagree. Usually people who are kings and queens are given pretty good education. So I think that was a lot of it in her nature. Okay, next one. Family conversations for beyond the grave. Dr. Xavier. A very talented doctor who we shall call Xavier, who died a few months ago, was heavily involved with magnetism. That's mean talking to spirits, communicating with spirits. And sometimes it also means hypnosis. Leaving a manuscript which he thought would change science. Before he had died, he'd read the Spirit's book, wishing he could have contact with its author. The illness would kill him, would not allow it. His evocation followed requests from his family, and the eminently instructive answers it contains lead us to insert it in this collection, subtracting, however, everything which was of particular interest. So this guy's writing a book about magnetism, right? The ability to talk to the spirit world. Do you remember the manuscript you left? I give little importance to that, what the doctor replied. What is your current opinion about it? Vain work of a being who ignored himself. Nevertheless, you thought the work would revolutionize science. Because now I see very clearly. So this guy passed over and he had the presence of mind. They go, oh, okay, looks like I was wrong. He's a very smart person, very open-minded. Number 4, as the spirit, could you correct and finalize the work? I started from a point which I hardly knew. I would have perhaps to redo everything. Are you happy or unhappy? I wait and suffer. What do you wait for? New trials. What is the cause of your suffering? The evil things I have done. However, you have not done evil intentionally. He goes, do you know the human heart well? And he asks him, are you errant or incarnate? He goes, errant. When you were alive, what was your opinion about divinity? I did not believe it. And now I don't believe enough. You wanted to contact me. Do you remember that? Answer, yes. Do you see me and recognize the person with whom you wanted to establish a relationship? The answer is yes. What impression the spirit books had on you? It unsettled me, was the answer. What do you think about it now? It is a great piece of work. What do you think about the future of the Spiritist doctrine? It is great, but certain disciples cause it harm. And this is back in the 1850s. Who causes harm? Because the answer is those who attack real things, the religions, the first and simple beliefs of men. As a doctor, this is a question, and considering your own studies, no doubt you can answer the following questions. Can the body preserve for a few moments its organic life after the separation of the soul? The answer is yes. For how long? Because there isn't a time. Question 20, I ask you to please clarify, because this lasts only a few moments. So there's not a set time is what he's saying, but this lasts a few moments. Number 21, how does the separation between body and soul happen? Like a fluid which escapes from any container. Well, that's a good analogy. Is there a real life separating life and death? Both states touch and confuse each other. Thus, the spirit gradually loosens its ties, but does not break them. Question 23. This loosening of the soul, does it happen more promptly on some people than on others? The answer is yes, on those who elevate above matter when alive, as their souls belong more to the spiritual world than to the earthly one. 24. When the union between the soul and the body of a child takes place. When the child breathes, as if receiving the soul with the exterior air. Now, see, he's wrong, and he doesn't know that. It actually starts on the moment of conception. Observation. This is an opinion. Oh, here's clarifying. This opinion is a consequence of the Catholic dogma. In fact, Church teaches that the soul will only be saved by baptism. Well, as an intrauterine death is very frequent, what would then happen to that soul, according to the Church, was subtracted from the only means of salvation in case it existed in the body before birth. To be consistent, it was necessary that baptism took place, if not in fact, at least intentionally, at the very moment of conception. How would you explain the life in the womb? Like the plant which vegetates, the child lives the animal life. Is there a crime in subtracting life before birth, considering that in such occasions the child has no soul, thus it is not a human being? The answer is the mother or any other person who would take the life of a child before birth would commit a crime, as it would impede the soul from withstanding the trials to which the body would be an instrument. And that's true. Nevertheless, the expiation in which the reincarnating soul would have to suffer would take place. Yes, but God knew that the soul would not bond to that body. Thus, no soul should bond to that corporeal covering. It was the mother's trial. Number 28, in case the mother's life was at risk due to the child's birth, would it be a crime to sacrifice the latter to save the former? No, it is preferable to sacrifice the non-existent being than the existing one. Number 29, does this union between the soul and the body take place instantly or gradually? That is, there would be the need for an appreciable time for such a union to be complete. And the answer is, the spirit does not suddenly enter the body. To measure the time, imagine that the first breath that the child receives is the soul entering the body, the time for the chest to move up and down. Again, he's incorrect. It enters the body right at conception. Is a union between the soul and, so again, but this is good to read because it shows you he had died. He doesn't know everything yet, and he's only telling you what he thinks he knows. And so that's for anyone who talks to spirits. And remember that the spirits will talk to a medium at their same spiritual level. And so, are also going to be more primitive spirits will talk to a higher medium, but that medium will understand pretty fast that spirit doesn't really have the full set of facts and knowledge. So again, when if you have a spirit that says things like that, listen to these little clues, because the spirit is saying things very rationally, very politely, and yet he's wrong. So that's why you have to read the spirit's book and the medium's book and understand, and other spiritist literature, and really understand. Then, only then, when you talk to a spirit, can you place that spirit in contacts where they are in the spirit hierarchy. And so, being a medium is not just a fun and games. It takes study and practice. And mediums are trained in spiritist centers in Brazil. I don't know what spiritist centers in the United States train mediums yet, but I'm sure some do. Now, number 30, is the union between the soul and this or that body predestined, or does the choice only take place at the moment of birth? He said, God marked it. The question requires more developments. Choosing their trials, the spirit's request to incarnate. Thus, God, who knows and sees everything, previously knew that a given soul would unite to a given body. When a spirit is born in the low social classes, you know that his life will be of hardship and suffering. The child who will be born has an existence which results, up to a certain degree, from the position of her parents. Now, again, he's answering that as well as he can. He's answering it in very rational language, and he gives a good case. But again, it's not necessarily true. When a spirit is in one of the levels of heaven, and maybe in an outpost in the lower zone, a lot of times they're allowed to give input to what their reincarnation plan is, and they'll develop that plan in concert with their spirit mentors. When a spirit is in the lower zone or below, they have no input to the plan. They might be allowed to, depending on they may be asked certain questions, but essentially it's not up to them. It's like a kid going to elementary school. No, you're going to that teacher, and you're going to this class and next class and that class. None of it's up to you. But when you're in college, you can pick and choose what you want. It's the same thing here. And as far as the social position, he's going to have hardship and suffering versus not. That's debatable, right? You can have a person on very high social position have a very hard life. Question 31. Why do good and virtuous parents have children of perverse nature? Put differently, why the good qualities of the parents do not always attract by sympathy a good spirit to animate their child? A bad spirit requests good parents, hoping that their good advice guides them through a better path. And yes, that's exactly true. So he's right about that. Question 32. Can the parents, through their thoughts and prayers, attract to the body of the child a good spirit instead of an inferior one? The answer is no. They can, however, improve the spirit of the child to which they gave birth. It is their duty. Bad children are a trial to the parents. Again, he's correct. No, they can't attract. It's all, in fact, parents are brought into heaven to meet the child, and a lot of times parents will already pre-plan who their children were as they're working out their births before they incarnate, when they're still kids, and they haven't even met each other, but they will, because that's part of the predetermination, and they'll have that child. The intricacies of Earth and how our trials interconnect with each other, it's just amazing when you think of it. It's like trying to follow a thread in a carpet. It interconnects with so many other threads, but somehow it does. Question 33. The maternal love for the conservation of the child's life is understood, but taking into account that such love is natural, why are there mothers who hate their children, and many times since birth? They said bad spirits who try to obstruct the spirit of the child, so the child succumb to the desired trials. Yeah, there are bad parents. Oh, and here's his note. The theory given by the Spirit about the union between the soul and body is not that accurate. The union begins since conception, that is, since the moment when the Spirit, not yet incarnated, attaches to the body by a fluidic tie, which progressively reinforces up until birth. Incarnation only completes when the child breathes. That's that's a Spirit's book, question 344, and the next one. So again, Allan Kardec is giving you what the real answers are. So I hope this was interesting to you. And I think in this, to help, if you'd like to learn more, is I would recommend my book, Heaven and Below, Book 1 of Spiritism, The Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. And I talk about what is in heaven, what is the lower zone, what's the dark abyss, what's the type of purgatory. And I also have a whole section on who is and what is Jesus Christ. So he's so much more than this wonderful person that came and only lived, 30 plus years on earth. He is our governor, our CEO, our leader, our dean. He's everything to us, our father. So I would hope that would really reveal to you where are we in the context of things. And then the next book in that series is Spirit in the Spirit Universe, Book 2 of Spiritism. And that's all about what you are as a spirit. Who are you as a spirit? What do you do as a spirit? How do you graduate? How do you improve yourself as a spirit? And again, this is all important to know, because the more you understand really what you are, because as a spirit, you are has so much amazing power. And then the third book is How We Are Guided by Spirits. Again, this goes into your guardian angels, and how your life is watched over, and you're kind of moved, maybe unconsciously on your part, but the signs and signals and synchronicities move you from one place to another, and what's going to happen to you in later lives, and what is going to happen to Earth. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for being part of our meeting today. And remember, tomorrow on Mondays, we have our Q&A, questions and answers on Spiritism. So it's just free formatted, any questions you like. And on Tuesday, we're going more